My name is Frank Davis Ashburn. I'm headmaster of Brooks School, have been since 1927.
Now, Mr. Ashburn, as the founder of Brooks School, you had to choose its colors and its shield. How did you arrive at decisions on color and?
It was a modification of the Groton shield. The Groton colors were red, white, and black, and we were green, white, and black, I guess. Well, I invented that motto for the school, I think, and I will claim credit for that. I substituted victory for moratory. Victory te salutamus, we greet thee, we about to live, or we greet thee, we about to conquer. The victory that's a play on words in itself. It can be either conquer or live.
And was it solely your choice, or did you
Yes,
have
it's solely mine.
no committee?
No committee, thank God. Committees are never any good.
Mr. Ashburn, would you or could you describe a typical day at school when you first started Brooks School back in the early 30s? What time students got up in the morning, what they did?
Well, I guess they got up about 7 o'clock, and I got up about 7:30, didn't I, dear? Something. If I got up at all, which I much preferred. Well, classes started pretty soon after that, and I taught, I forget, several subjects. So I went from class to class.
What subjects did you teach? Can you recall?
English, history, Latin.
And where did everyone have those classes?
Well, they were in the one new building we had, the brick building, brick we called it. And it was a dormitory upstairs, and then downstairs there were two fairly large classrooms and one huge classroom, a general room where the whole school could meet for school meetings.
And was that Whitney House? Or was that
Yes, that was Old Whitney.
And in the afternoons, what did the students do after their classes and lunch?
They had a little break, and then they went to athletics. Everybody had to do some form of athletics.
And what sports were offered in those days, in the 30s?
In the fall, almost entirely tag football. In the winter, hockey and basketball, or what passed for basketball. And in the spring, baseball and crew, and tennis. I think we had chapel after dinner, didn't we, dear?
Yeah. And the students, was it a formal dinner that you had?
Everybody sat down.
Formal in terms of what they were wearing, and
well, they were supposed to have a coat and tie. They had to have that. I don't think there was anything else. It was very informal, as it always was. During the week, there was a hymn, and then a lesson of some sort, reading from the Bible, and then prayers. That was the whole thing. And on Sunday, it was just an elaboration of that. There was a processional, and then psalm, and again, readings usually from the Old and New Testament.
Did you feel that the boys appreciated chapel?
I don't think most of them would have admitted it at the time, but from what they said in later years, I think nearly all of them did come to value it.
Is it a value that you'd like to see continue at the school?
Well, definitely, definitely.
How would you like to see it continue? The same way that you recall it?
Just the same way, yeah.
During the 1950s, obviously, as you say, the school was bigger. Are there any events that you can think of or important leaders who visited?
We had a master then, Dick Holmes, who was very much interested in people, and he knew a lot of prominent politicians, and among them was Kennedy. And it was Dick who got Kennedy to come to Brooks.
Is that when the school decided that it wanted to be a Democratic school rather than a Republican school?
No, we never decided that. We were always independent.
Did you vote for Mr. Roosevelt?
Yes, I did.
Yes, and you knew him too, didn't you?
Yes, yes. My grandfather was a very ardent Democrat. I was independent.
Have you remained that?
Yes, definitely. When I'm allowed to. Can't always get away with it.
Which traditions can you recall that were important to you?
Saying good night to every boy, knowing every boy's first name and something of his family when he arrived at school, having them all wholly interested in their subjects, but all of them at least involved to some extent in what they were studying, especially English and history. I never cared much for math. I didn't see the use of it, and I never could do it, never understood a word of it. So the sciences were always very important, very interested, but I never understood about them either.
What do you think about today? Do you think people should pay attention to the sciences and to mathematics?
Yes, up to a point.
But what?
Not beyond that point.
What should they do before that point? Where should they spend? And what authors or what literature or what history?
Classics in English literature. Good anthology, I'd begin with that. Wordsworth, Masefield, and Kipling. Yeah, Frost, certainly. And you can pretty run through the list. I liked them all and was devoted to them.
How about Brooke? Rupert Brooke.
Brooke, he was definitely on the list, yeah.
You've written a poem about Brooke.
Yeah, he was definitely on the list.
And you've also written a lot of sonnets yourself.
Yeah.
How did you get to the sonnet form or appreciate that?
Oh, I think I picked that up at Yale probably. No, I began it at Groton with Emerson Tuttle. I loved the form. Almost anything I looked at or read I could turn into a sonnet.
Do you remember the boss's sex talks that you had? When we were seniors, you had us and you told us...
Oh, I had them every year, I know that, but
Yes.
I don't remember what I said. I didn't know very much about it.
Do you think Brooks has a unique role in private education?
I think it probably did have. It's a little hard to analyze it, though. I think, for one thing, we believed in the underdog and in his possibilities, and we were always interested in the boy who was just a little bit not off color, but off the beaten track.
How is Brooks different from the more traditional schools that you and I would put on one hand, like a Groton or St. Mark's or Middlesex or those?
I think the interest in the individual and the faith in him and trying to get the individual boy interested in whatever he could do well or do best. We always encouraged that. Girls can be girls and boys can be boys without a lot of distractions. If I had to do it again and could choose either way, I think I'd still go to the one-sex school. Honestly, I think there's a lot to be said for the co-ed school, but I also think there's a lot to be said for the one-sex school, which I grew up with. There's no charge for that. That's all right.
It might come later, right?